This week on the West Asia Post. In war-torn Gaza, Palestinians are lamenting that they are suffering a second Nakba. Washington has made its strongest statement on the IDF's Rafah operation. We ask why the Israeli Prime Minister has a problem with UNRWA and what lies in store for Kuwait's semi-democratic system. Watch the West Asia Post with me, Reddy Francis, this Friday at 7:30 p.m. IST, only on WION World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janno.
And I'm Raisha Sehgal. On the show today, the US has anchored a floating pier in Gaza to boost aid supplies. However, there are still questions on how the aid groups will perhaps safely operate in Gaza to distribute foods to those who need the most. Meanwhile, Israel has called South Africa the legal arm of Hamas after it accused Israeli forces of failing to protect civilians in Rafah at the International Court of Justice. We'll of course be tracking all of that very closely here on the show today.
Also on World DNA, the US has reacted to the Xi Jinping-Vladimir Putin meet. Washington says that Xi Jinping cannot have it both ways, that is, improve ties with the West and support Russia after he vowed to boost relations with Vladimir Putin. We are going to be tracking that closely as well. For now, let's get you started with the headlines.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls military operations in Rafah crucial in the fight against Hamas militants over differences with Defense Minister Yoav Gallant on post-war Gaza plan, says he will soon have one-on-one with him.
As Russian forces advance in Kharkiv, Volodymyr Zelensky describes the situation as very difficult but under control, while top NATO commander claims that Russia does not have sufficient forces to make major breakthrough in Ukraine after Kharkiv offensive. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis vow to target all ships heading to Israel, threatened to extend their attacks beyond Red Sea region as well, in solidarity with Palestinians.
White House brushes off Russia and China's reaffirmation of ties as nothing new amid Putin's visit to Beijing. Says China cannot have it both ways, wanting to have ties with Western world and Russia simultaneously.
Any law is a scam.
Donald Trump's lawyer accuses star witness Michael Cohen of lying at the hush money trial. Former US president calls the trial a scam, says he didn't violate any law.
France deploys additional forces as violence continues to rage across the French Pacific territory for the third consecutive day. State of emergency imposed after confrontation result in 4 fatalities.
The ongoing trade tussle between the United States and China boosts Vietnam's manufacturing credentials as the world's largest economy tries to reduce its dependence on Beijing.
In a major shot in the arm for the Indian Air Force, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is expected to supply the first LCA Mark 1A fighter aircraft by July. Well, the fighter's maiden flight was completed successfully last month, and ongoing integration trials are expected to conclude in the coming weeks. Let's now find out more about the Tejas LCA Mark 1A, which is set to replace aging IF aircraft such as MiG-21s, MiG-23s and MiG-27s. Well, to begin with, LCA Mark 1A stands for Light Combat Aircraft Tejas Mark 1A series, and it is a domestically manufactured supersonic aircraft used by the Indian military. The LCA is a tailless compound delta aircraft which is also equipped with quadruplex digital fly-by-wire. Apart from this, it is best suited for offensive air support, though it is also capable of carrying out other auxiliary functions as well. Now, speaking of its features now, starting with how the Tejas Mark 1 is equipped with advanced electronically scanned array, also known as AESA, and also advanced self-protection jammer. Apart from this, they also boast of improved detection range and capabilities, and it is also capable of tracking 16 targets together, that is air-to-air, air-to-ground and air-to-sea modes. Apart from this, the other features of the aircraft includes the improved electronic warfare suite, which is one of the most enhancement features that has been introduced. Apart from this, the advanced electronic warfare suite, it enhances aircraft's survivability in the air. Additionally, the aircraft is capable of carrying payloads of up to 3,500 kilograms. And it also features an advanced mission computer. Not only this, it also includes a high-performance digital flight computer, also known as DFCC Mk1A. And it is also equipped with smart multi-function displays for SMFDs. However, its most prominent feature till now, it is perhaps that it is the inbuilt capacity to fire BVR missiles, which are also known as beyond visual range missiles. Now, the BVR missile called the Astra Mark 1 are to be reportedly integrated with the Mk1A, a weapon and a feature that is likely to give the Tejas Mk1A an edge over its other contemporaries in today's time. Well, it was in 2003 that the Light Combat Aircraft program was named Tejas, meaning radiance in Sanskrit, by the then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Although currently HAL is not sold to other countries, Singapore, Egypt, Sri Lanka, the UAE and Malaysia have expressed their interest and willingness in acquiring this aircraft.
Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping have reaffirmed that Beijing and Moscow are each other's quote-unquote priority partners.
Right, Shiva. Now, China and Russia declared a no-limits partnership in 2022. This is when Putin visited Beijing just days before he sent tens of thousands of troops into Ukraine, triggering the deadliest land war in Europe since World War II.
Now, the leaders also lashed out at Washington. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin blamed the US for everything from extending nuclear deterrence with allies, including Australia, to developing high-precision non-nuclear weapons for potential decapitation strikes. Their statement also spoke of concerns around what they say are US efforts to violate the strategic nuclear balance. Global US missile defenses that threaten Russia and China, and US plans for high-precision non-nuclear weapons as well.
Xi and Putin's Beijing meeting comes just days after Russia opened a new front in the ongoing war in Ukraine, with its troops advancing in the northeastern region of Kharkiv. She said that both he and Putin had agreed that a political settlement to the Ukraine crisis was the right direction. In a joint statement, they added that both the countries were opposed to a drawn-out conflict in the country.
We are grateful to Chinese friends and colleagues for the initiatives they put forward to solve this problem.
Putin's schedule also included a gala celebration marking 75 years since the Soviet Union recognized the People's Republic of China and a tea ceremony. The meeting is being seen as a clear snub to Washington, who sent US Secretary of State Antony Blinken to China just last month. While speaking at the opening ceremony of the Russia and China Year of Culture, Putin said he felt so comfortable in China that he forgot to pause for the translator.
I feel very much at home, therefore decided that everyone speaks Russian here. We will continue to act in unison for the successful development of the two countries, the prosperity of the two peoples, to increase the authority and influence of Russia and China in the world.
Meanwhile, US State Department has said it finds China's essential reconstitution of Russia's defense industrial base deeply problematic and will take appropriate action on the issue when required.
We also believe that the People's Republic of China's essential reconstitution of Russia's defense industrial base is deeply problematic, and we will monitor this space closely and take appropriate actions independently through other multilateral fora should we need it.
Now, ever since Russia's full invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Moscow has made inroads of at least several kilometers into the north of Kharkiv region since Friday.
Well, of course, this has forced Kiev's outmanned troops to try to hold the front line, but that's in vain. Ukraine is battling to stabilize the mounting Russian pressure. Ukrainian President Zelensky said that more troops had been sent to the area, and the Ukrainian army said that it had partially halted Russia's advance.
Ukraine has accused Russian troops of executing civilians in the northern districts of Vovchansk of the Kharkiv region and also of using civilians as human shields.
Zelensky held a meeting with top military commanders in Kharkiv during his visit to the region. Zelensky also met with fighters of the 92nd Assault Unit.
I would like to ask you to thank the 92nd Unit from me. You didn't let the enemy break through. You are strong warriors, as well as other Kharkiv warriors who fight in other brigades defending their homes and all of Ukraine. Take care of yourselves. I wish you only fortitude, victory, health to your relatives and friends. Glory to Ukraine.
A top NATO military officer believes that Russian armed forces simply does not have the number or even the ability to make any major breakthrough in the Kharkiv region right now.
The Russians don't have the numbers necessary to do a strategic breakthrough. We don't believe, more to the point, they don't have the skill and the capability to do it, to operate at the scale necessary to exploit any breakthrough to strategic advantage. They do have the ability to make local advances, and they have done some of that. They've also made some local losses.
Meanwhile, Russia's Belgorod region's border town of Shebekino came under shelling from the Ukrainian forces. As per media reports, 8 residential buildings sustained damage in around a dozen strikes. Now, the Ukrainian strikes damaged the Belbek air base in Crimea. Satellite images showed the aftermath of the attack. Images released by Maxar showed damage to the fuel storage facility as well as 3 destroyed fighter aircraft located at the base. South Africa has dragged Israel to court once again. Now the country has urged the International Court of Justice to order a stop on Israeli assaults in Rafah.
Right, Shivan, and this comes as Israel has stepped up its offensive in the Gaza Strip, even when aid agencies, they continue to warn against the looming threat of famine. Well, the hearing comes after South Africa requested the court to issue further constraints on Israel's military advancements in Gaza.
South Africa cited the quote-unquote irreparable harm over Israel's incursion in Rafah, where over 1 million people have sought refuge. South Africa's filings claim that this is the last step in the total destruction of Gaza. It charged Israel of disrupting the flow of humanitarian aid to Gaza, referring to IDF's control over 2 major crossings at Rafah and Kerem Shalom.
Well, the United States has warned that the humanitarian situation in Gaza has continued to worsen. The U.S. State Department has asked Israel to do more to protect civilians at the moment and also to allow sustained aid deliveries in the north and the south of the Strip. The department has said that not just food but also the supply of fuel has totally collapsed in Gaza, creating roadblocks for distribution of resources inside the Strip.
Meanwhile, the United Nations has said that land access is the most effective way to stave off famine in Gaza. This despite US efforts to anchor a floating pier in Gaza to boost aid deliveries. The UN has warned of difficulties over distribution of aid, warning that maritime access was no substitute for land. The US has said that trucks are expected to make way into the Strip in the coming days.
Getting aid to people in need into and across Gaza cannot and should not depend on a floating dock far from where needs are most acute. To stave off the horrors of famine, we must use the fastest and most obvious route to reach the people of Gaza, and for that, we need access by land now.
Spain has refused docking permission for ships carrying arms for Israel at its ports. The decision comes after Spanish authorities intercepted a shipping vessel carrying ammunition for Tel Aviv for the first time.
Meanwhile, in a bid to commemorate the hostages taken away during the October 7th attacks last year, Berlin's historic site of Nazi book burnings, which is called Bebelplatz, was turned into a memorial on Thursday. It has been symbolically renamed to Hamas Hostages Square, with plastic chairs installed along with the photographs of the hostages.
The Arab League summit has also called for an immediate ceasefire in the fighting during Thursday's meeting in Bahrain. The leaders urged for Israeli troops to pull out of the Strip and I'm quoting here, lift the blockade on civilians. The declaration also called for increased international intervention while echoing the two-state solution.
فهو في الحقيقة سقوط لكل من يدافع عن الأداء الإسرائيلي.
Well, the United States of America has anchored a floating pier near a beach in Gaza as thousands of Palestinians in the territory battle war-induced starvation.
More than a month after announcing the plan for the pier, Washington has now opened up an aid route via sea. But it seems the suffering Palestinians want nothing to do with it. Well, Palestinians who have been displaced by Israel's incessant blanket bombing across the Strip say they do not need US, Israel's biggest ally, to give them humanitarian assistance.
Well, Gazans have lashed out at the Biden administration's hypocrisy as US continues to provide arms to Israel on one hand, while it offers humanitarian help to Gaza on the other hand.
I strongly object to these ships and the American ships. They hit us at night and then support us during the day. This is the biggest thing that we oppose. We have a number of border crossings that aid can come through, supplies and food. We reject dealing with the ships and the American ships because in the same way it gives us, it will take away from us. Maybe they want to take over the gas fields that are in the sea, or maybe they are here to displace the Palestinian people and to transfer us from one country to another.
Our homes are gone. What do we want from them? Do they want to bring us some food, some tomatoes, some potatoes or canned food? What do we want with the canned food? They should bring us back our homes, stop the bloodshed. They should come and see how we're living in the open. We're living on the street. Our children are out on the streets. What do we want from them?
Beyond the reactions and sentiments of Palestinians adversely affected, the US also faces a logistical dead end when it comes to aid distribution in Gaza. Washington is now facing the same challenge that the UN and other aid groups have been lamenting about for months. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is a worried man. Well, Israeli hostages are still in captivity and Hamas is still a potent fighting force all these months ever since Israel launched that offensive.
Right, Shivan, Israel's close allies are threatening him to mend his ways. And now his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, has openly said that he disagrees with Netanyahu over his lack of a post-war plan for Gaza. Our next story sums up the current situation in the ongoing war. Take a look.
Israel's tanks are pushing into the heart of Jabalia in northern Gaza. Its jets are pounding from the skies. But the offensive isn't proceeding as swiftly as Israel planned. Hamas is fiercely fighting back, hiding inside the destroyed buildings and alleys. The Hamas attacks with anti-tank rockets and mortar bombs are catching the Israeli troops by surprise. In the heat of the battle, Israeli forces shelled a building, mistakenly identifying and killing its own paratroopers inside. But beyond the battlefield, the Israeli government is finding itself split right down in the middle.
I will not agree to the establishment of Israeli military rule in Gaza. Israel cannot establish civilian rule in Gaza.
Until it is clear that Hamas does not control Gaza militarily, nobody will be prepared to take upon himself the civil management of Gaza out of fear for their lives.
Gallant's very public and most vocal dissent predictably drew Netanyahu's ire. Without naming Gallant, he said the retired admiral is making excuses for not destroying Hamas in the 8-month-long conflict. So what is Israel's post-war plans for Gaza? Netanyahu is under fire from critics at home and allies abroad. The US is calling for a plan for the governance, security and rebuilding of Gaza. Israel's fierce response has obliterated entire neighborhoods in Gaza and forced 80% of population to flee their homes. The displacement renews painful memories of mass expulsion from what is now Israel in the war surrounding the country's creation in 1948.
Well, the French artist Sape, known for his murals around the world, unveils a new piece entitled Bright Dreams.
Well, the artwork is painted on a lawn in Zurich and shows a young girl surrounded by a map and a lighthouse in support of the Maritime Rescue Organization. Our next report gets you the full details. Take a look.
And well, it's time now for a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. On the other side, Japan's SoftBank Corp is experimenting with AI-enabled software that converts angry customers' voice into a calm conversational tone for the bank employees. Well, the aim is to maintain good relationships with customers while ensuring the psychological welfare of the employees as well. We'll get you that full story.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
This week on Inside South Asia, wave upon wave of massive protests in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir forces Pakistan to fork out $86 million for the region. But will residents of exploited POK be mollified? India inks 10-year deal to operate Iran's Chabahar port. US warns of potential risk of sanctions. Decoding New Delhi's series of concessions for Mali despite distinct anti-India, pro-China moves by the Maldives under President Muizu. Over 3,000 people killed as flash floods ravage northern Afghanistan, picking up the pieces an uphill task. This and more on Inside South Asia.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
This week on WION E-Club, we tell you about India's history at the ongoing Cannes Film Festival. At last, find out all about the Bridgerton franchise as the new season of the hit show starts streaming online. And meet the Indian actor-producer duo Rajkumar Rao and Nidhi Hiranandani as they talk about their latest movie, Shrikant. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, on WION at these times.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Rahisha and me, Shivan. Let's get you started with the headlines we're tracking for you at this hour.
Israeli settlers attack Palestinian trucks carrying aid near northern West Bank, storm Palestinian commercial work yard to burn food supplies bound for Gaza.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls military operations in Rafah crucial in the fight against Palestinian militants over differences with Defense Minister Gallant on post-war Gaza plans. Says he will soon have one-on-one with him.
Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis vows to target all ships heading to Israel, threatened to extend their attacks beyond Red Sea region in support with Palestinians.
Ukrainian drone strike kills a mother and her 4-year-old son in Russia's southern Belgorod region. Several drones fired at the region hit the car they were traveling in.
White House brushes off Russia and China's reaffirmation of ties as nothing new amid Putin's visit to Beijing, says China cannot have it both the ways, wanting to have ties with Western world and Russia simultaneously.
I didn't violate any law. It was a scam.
Donald Trump's lawyer accuses star witness Michael Cohen of lying at the hush money trial. Former US president calls the trial a scam, says he didn't violate any law.
France deploys additional forces as violence continues to rage across the French Pacific territory for the third consecutive day. State of emergency imposed after confrontation result in 4 fatalities.
The ongoing trade tussle between the United States and China boosts Vietnam's manufacturing credentials as the world's largest economy tries to reduce its dependence on Beijing. Former US President Donald Trump exited the courtroom after concluding a hearing on his hush money trial on the 18th day.
Trump's attorney cross-examined his one-time fixer and star witness, Michael Cohen, while Trump said that he had an interesting day in court, adding that he did not violate any law and that the case against him is a scam. More details coming up in the next report. Take a look.
Donald Trump's defense lawyer on Thursday accused prosecution star witness Michael Cohen of lying at the former U.S. president's trial about a 2016 phone call about a $130,000 hush money payment to a porn star. Cohen, who was once Trump's trusted personal lawyer, claimed he spoke with his former boss about plans to buy Stormy Daniels' silence about what she claims is a 2006 sexual encounter with the then reality TV star. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, said to Cohen, quote, "That is a lie. You can admit it." "No, sir, I can't, because I'm not certain that is accurate," Cohen responded. The exchange followed several hours of questioning by Blanche, designed to cast Trump's former fixer as a spiteful turncoat, eager to see his former boss behind bars. Cohen testified he paid off Daniels and that Trump reimbursed him, falsely logging the reimbursements as legal expenses. Trump is charged with illegally falsifying business records to hide the payments. The Manhattan District Attorney alleges Trump wanted to quash a sordid story that threatened his 2016 bid for the White House.
This trial is a scam and it's a sham and it shouldn't happen.
Trump has pleaded not guilty, denied the affair, and called the prosecution politically motivated to hurt his presidential campaign. Donald Trump's lawyers sought to undermine Cohen's credibility on Thursday, highlighting his past record of lying and his statements celebrating Trump's legal troubles. Trump's lawyer played jurors' audio clips of Cohen saying the case, quote, "fills me with delight," and that he felt, quote, "giddy with hope and laughter," imagining Trump and his family in prison. Cohen's testimony has been corroborated by other evidence, including handwritten notes outlining Cohen's reimbursements, and a surreptitious recording made by Cohen of Trump seeming to discuss a hush money payment made by the National Enquirer tabloid to another woman. Cohen is set to return to the witness stand next week.
And from on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
In the so-called Trump hush money trial in Manhattan on Thursday, the former president's attorney intensely cross-examined Michael Cohen, accusing him of fabricating a telephone call with the former president back in 2016. And while Cohen stuck to his version of the account, the attorney challenged Cohen's credibility, pointing to inconsistencies in his statements past and present. The aim of defense is to not only paint Michael Cohen as a witness that is not credible, but also that does not remember key events when it comes to dealing with the former president and their interactions. Closing arguments are expected to begin as early as Tuesday of next week. and the jury may have a decision by the end of next week. According to those who were present in the courtroom, the former president was very vigilant. He was involved and he was intensely looking at Michael Cohen during his testimony. Ultimately, the defense wants this case to close as soon as possible. One reason to get the former president back on the campaign trail, but the other for them to appeal should Donald Trump be convicted. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Let's now take a look at all the news from the world of technology. Well, dealing with customers, irritating customers, can be extremely stressful for call center workers. To solve this pertinent issue, Japan's SoftBank Co. is experimenting with AI. It is testing AI-enabled software that converts angry customers' voice into a calm conversation AI tone, which will then be delivered to the bank employees. The software uses AI-enabled emotion recognition and voice processing technology. That aim is to maintain good ties with customers while ensuring the psychological welfare of the employees. SoftBank plans to first test the technology internally before making it public by the end of March 2026.
Global banking regulators have issued a new warning. They have said that digitalization and entry of big tech into finance could lead to big risks. According to a report by the Basel Committee of Banking Regulators, the growth of cloud computing, artificial intelligence and open banking has led to new vulnerabilities. The report suggests that an increase in interconnections could lead to greater strategic and reputational risks. It could also lead to a potential system-wide risk. The report also highlights the risks posed by third-party external operators. The report emphasizes the need for new rules to mitigate these vulnerabilities.
Another day, another new legal trouble for Meta. Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa is suing tech giant Meta and its Japan unit. The question being why? Maezawa has accused Meta over illegal use of his name and image in fraudulent investment ads on their platforms. Online fraudsters in Japan commonly use Maezawa's name and picture to entice victims. Maezawa has accused Meta of not making efforts to stop the unauthorized use of his picture and name. This is not the first time Maezawa has raised his voice against the illegal ads. He had previously urged the Japanese government to take action regarding such scams. According to reports, Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party is working on plans to counter online investment scams that illegally use pictures of celebrities, video and voice to entice the victims.
Over to the world of business, the trade war between the US and China has had an unintended consequence: the rise of Vietnam.
Well, since 2018, US imports from Vietnam have more than doubled, reaching $114 billion last year. This surge coincides with a near-perfect correlation between the increase in Vietnamese exports to the US and their imports from China.
Data suggests that Vietnam is acting as a middleman, assembling products with Chinese parts for the US market. Now, this strategy has helped Vietnam capture over 60% of the market share lost by China in key US imports like textiles and electronics. However, Vietnam's success story comes with a caveat.
The country now boasts the fourth largest trade surplus with the US, exceeding $105 billion in 2023. This imbalance could raise concerns in Washington, especially after the upcoming elections.
While Vietnam has benefited from the US-China trade spat, its reliance on Chinese components raises questions. Around 80% of the value of Vietnam's electronics exports comes from Chinese parts. And this dependence on China exposes Vietnam to potential future US trade actions against them, especially if the perception is that Vietnamese exports are simply a way for China to circumvent tariffs.
Additionally, the US is probing Vietnam's trade practices in solar panels and aluminium cables. These probes, coupled with Vietnam's position as the leading source of US shipments rejected due to concerns about forced labor in China's Xinjiang region. It suggests a potential shift in US-Vietnam trade ties. While Vietnam seeks market economy status from the US, is ballooning trade surplus that could lead to increased scrutiny. The risk of additional tariffs or trade barriers, it hangs over Vietnam, especially if the US deems their practices unfair or a way to undermine US-China trade policy. As for China, it seems to be able to work through the sanctions thanks to its stronghold on the global supply chain. Well, the growing divide between the haves and the have-nots is now clearly visible in the US.
The Federal Reserve's indecision is not helping the cause either. Take a look at this next report to know more.
Time and again, Fed Chief Jerome Powell has made it clear. Financial conditions, the Fed's key lever for cooling the US economy, are tight. After an $11 trillion rally in U.S. stocks since late October and the sudden revival of meme stock fever, many on Wall Street think Powell is dead wrong. So while the stock market may be cheering up rich Americans, it's doing little to invigorate the less affluent. They are trapped by inflation and struggling to cover debts thanks to sky-high borrowing costs. Going simply by the value added, increases in stock prices over the 5 months through the March peak reached about 38% of the gross domestic product. That's a near unprecedented pace of wealth creation for the rich. Put simply, the fruits of the market boom remain unevenly spread among Americans, given epic disparities in wealth. This is reflected especially across generations and racial groups, while stock gains are still modest when adjusting for the impact of inflation. Consumer confidence remains stubbornly detached from the S&P 500 rally. Still, top investment firms predict the rally in stocks to rage on. With the S&P 500 index setting all-time high, BMO Capital Markets is now predicting even more gains through the end of 2024. That is even as the Fed's rate path remains uncertain. Inflation is a pressure cooker, and that's largely why consumer sentiment is so negative. Stocks aren't the only thing that has gone up. The cost of living since the COVID-19 hit has surged by the most in living memory for the vast majority of Americans. On average, spending on essentials such as housing, food, gas, utilities, and healthcare has reached nearly 65% of U.S. household budgets. According to JP Morgan Chase, that is up from 60% in 2019. The hardship is more acute for the lowest income group, with a proportion of such costs reaching over 80%. While the record proportion of American households own stocks, there is a wide gap between rich and poor. According to the Fed, the bottom half have $0.4 trillion invested in equities. That is only a tiny fraction of the $20 trillion owned by the top 1% of the population. Bureau Report, WION World is One.